Consumer Reports tests approximately 150 car batteries every single year. They freeze them, bake them, drain them to nothing, and charge them back up hundreds of times. And after all of that, their lead battery tester said something the industry does not want you to hear. He said that price does not necessarily mean better performance. We have some less expensive batteries in our ratings that score very well. That is not a minor footnote. That is the whole story, because what he is describing is a market where you can walk into 4 different stores, buy 4 batteries with 4 different brand names at 4 different prices, and take home the same battery every single time. Today, we are going to show you exactly how that happened, who is profiting from it, the one family that refused to play along, and the 3 things you need to know before you spend another dollar on a car battery. If you have ever stood in an auto parts store staring at a wall of batteries, you probably believed you were looking at a genuine marketplace. You see DieHard at Advance Auto Parts. You see Duralast at AutoZone. You see Everstart at Walmart. You see Interstate at the dealership. You see Optima at the specialty shop. You assume these are different engineering teams, different factories, different standards competing for your dollar. That is an illusion. The reality is that one company makes more than half of all replacement car batteries sold in the United States. One company. And if you add the second and third largest producers, you have covered virtually the entire market. Consumer Reports states this directly in its buying guide. 3 companies build nearly all aftermarket batteries in America. 3 factories, dozens of brand names, hundreds of millions of dollars in price differences that exist entirely on paper. The names you trust: DieHard, Interstate, Bosch, Everstart, Optima, Varta, and most Duralast flooded batteries. Nearly all trace back to a single producer depending on which region of the country you live in and which retailer negotiated the better supply deal that year. The same battery leaves a facility in Toledo, Ohio, or Holland, Ohio, or Monterrey, Mexico. It gets a different label, and it carries a price tag that can vary by $100 depending on which store you walk into. But to understand how one investment firm came to control what starts your car every morning, you have to understand what was quietly built and then quietly sold over the course of 50 years. For decades, Johnson Controls was the dominant force in American automotive batteries. They entered the business in 1978 when they acquired Globe Union, the company that had developed the DieHard battery for Sears back in 1967. Over the following decades, Johnson Controls became the most vertically integrated battery operation on Earth. They supplied roughly 1 in 3 new vehicles rolling off assembly lines worldwide. They owned the factories, the brands, and the recycling infrastructure that turned your dead battery into a new one. In 2000, they expanded by acquiring a beloved American independent called Optima for $62 million. Optima was not just another battery company, it was a cult. Off-road enthusiasts swore by its spiral cell AGM design, with lead plates wound into tight cylindrical cells rather than lying flat, which delivered extraordinary vibration resistance and the ability to recover from deep discharge that a standard battery simply cannot match. The Aurora, Colorado plant was a point of pride. Working mechanics recommended Optima the way a surgeon recommends a specific instrument maker. When serious off-road builders listed their essential equipment, Optima was on that list before most people even considered the battery. Johnson Controls kept the Aurora plant running for 9 years. Then on January 31, 2009, they closed it. 140 workers lost their jobs. All production moved to Monterrey, Mexico. Almost immediately, the enthusiast forums began filling with something troubling. Batteries that once lasted a decade were failing in 12 to 18 months. Optima confirms the production move on its own website. The quality complaints in those forums have never stopped. That playbook, acquire the trusted brand, reduce the cost structure, Let the reputation carry the premium price long after the underlying quality has shifted is the exact model that repeated itself in 2019 at a scale that makes the Optima story look like a prequel. While all of this was happening at Johnson Controls, a parallel collapse was unfolding at the industry's second largest player. Exide Technologies had supplied batteries under the Champion, Exide, and various private label brand names for over a century. They filed for bankruptcy in 2013. In 2020, they filed again, this time carrying $817 million in debt. Their America's manufacturing assets were sold out of bankruptcy to a private equity firm called Atlas Holdings for less than $200 million. Atlas rebranded the operation as Stryten Manufacturing. The workers stayed, the factories stayed, the private equity owners changed. So when you look at the three companies building nearly every battery in America, two of the three are now owned by private equity firms that entered the industry through debt-driven acquisitions. Clarios through Brookfield, Stryten through Atlas. Combined, those two companies represent the overwhelming majority of what is sitting on store shelves across this country. The brands look independent. The ownership structure tells a completely different story. And that ownership structure matters because it determines where the money goes toward making a better battery or toward servicing investor returns. In November 2018, Brookfield Business Partners and the Canadian pension fund CDPQ announced the purchase of the entire Johnson Controls battery division for $13.2 billion. The deal closed April 30th, 2019. The following morning, the division was rebranded Clarios. Same factories, same workers, same batteries, entirely different financial priorities. Here is where the story goes from inconvenient to genuinely expensive. Brookfield does not acquire businesses to operate them indefinitely. The model is predictable: buy a cash-generating asset, load it with debt, pay dividends from that debt, then exit through a sale or a public offering. Clarios first attempted an initial public stock offering in 2021. It never happened. They tried again in May 2024, filing a prospectus that valued the enterprise at $18 billion. Then on January 6, 2025, they quietly withdrew the filing entirely. 2 days later, they raised $4.5 billion in new debt and paid it directly to Brookfield and CDPQ as a dividend. Bloomberg described it as one of the largest such payouts on record. That debt stays with Clarios. It gets priced into every battery they sell. Now set that against what you actually pay at the register. Walk into Advance Auto Parts and pick up a DieHard Advanced Gold in Group 47, AGM size, $178. Drive 3 miles to Walmart. Pick up an Everstart Max in the same group size, the same cold cranking amp rating, the same 36-month replacement warranty, $109. Both made by Clarios. $69 difference for the same battery. The only thing that changed is the sticker. That DieHard sticker was purchased by Advance Auto Parts from bankrupt Sears in December 2019 for $200 million. The brand your father trusted is now a marketing asset owned by a retail chain and applied to batteries manufactured by a private equity portfolio company. There is no DieHard engineering team. There is no DieHard factory. There is Clarios with a label in the print queue. And there is one more thing hiding in plain sight on every battery that is quietly costing drivers real money on every single replacement cycle. Every lead acid battery carries a date code stamped directly into its plastic case. On most batteries, you will find a number followed by a letter. The number is the last digit of the production year. The letter is the month, with A being January and L being December. A stamp reading 6D means April 2026. Flooded batteries self-discharge at 4 to 6% each month they sit on a shelf. A battery spending 9 months in a retail display has already shed meaningful capacity before you install it. On many brands, the warranty clock starts from the manufacture date, not your purchase date. Consumer Reports recommends buying nothing more than 3 to 6 months from the production stamp. Most people buying batteries right now have never looked for that code. Now here is the company that refused every version of the story you just heard and has been quietly proving what that decision is worth for nearly 80 years. While Johnson Controls was swallowing Optima and Brookfield was engineering its multi-billion-dollar extraction, a family in a small Pennsylvania town was doing something radical. They were just making batteries. East Penn Manufacturing was founded in 1946 by Delight Brightigam Sr. and his son, Delight Jr., in a rented creamery in Bowers, Pennsylvania. They never took the company public. They never sold to outside investors. Today, the fourth generation of the Brightigam family operates the single largest single-site lead battery manufacturing campus in the world, 520 acres in one Pennsylvania county, employing more than 10,000 people. East Penn runs its own lead smelter. They process more than 20 truckloads of spent batteries every day, reclaiming lead, recovering sulfuric acid, converting toxic fumes into liquid fertilizer. Zero wastewater discharge. They do not answer to a quarterly earnings call or a private equity exit timeline. They have a founding family that has operated in this community for 4 generations. Their batteries reach the market under names you see at every auto parts counter. Deka is their house brand. The Duracell automotive battery at Sam's Club is East Penn. So is Napa Legend and O'Reilly Superstart Extreme and Platinum. In Consumer Reports evaluation cycles, these lines consistently rank at the top of their categories. The Napa Legend Premium, AGM, and the Superstart Extreme routinely outscore batteries carrying premium brand labels priced $50 to $80 higher. Not occasionally. Consistently across multiple testing cycles. That is not the result of superior marketing. It is the direct result of a company that never had to redirect profits toward investor dividends, so those profits stayed in lead purity, plate thickness, and process control instead. So here is exactly what you do with everything you now know. Stop shopping by brand name and start shopping by manufacturer. Before you hand over money for a replacement battery, find out who built it. In most of the country, East Penn supplies Napa Legend, O'Reilly Superstart, and the Duracell line at Sam's Club. Those are Consumer Reports validated products from a company that has never had to answer for a leveraged buyout or a debt-funded dividend. If you drive in extreme heat or cold, own a turbocharged engine, or have a vehicle with a start-stop system, look at Enersys. Their Odyssey and Northstar lines use a technology called thin plate, pure lead, a genuinely different chemistry that delivers roughly double the cranking pulse of a standard flooded battery, with a service life measured in years rather than replacement cycles. They cost more upfront. Over time, they cost less. And always check the date code before you pay. Reject any battery more than 6 months from its manufacturer stamp and ask for a fresher unit or negotiate a discount. This is a 30-second check that could add a full year to the effective life of whatever battery you choose. The brands you grew up trusting still exist on the shelf, but in most cases, the companies that built those reputations were purchased, financially restructured, and optimized for investor extraction by people who never had the slightest interest in building a better battery. DieHard does not mean what it meant when your father bought it at Sears. Optima does not mean what mechanics swore by when it came out of Colorado. That trust was real when it was built. It was purchased and repriced by investors who are now $4.5 billion richer for it. Do not let that bill land in your wallet. Check the date. Know the maker. And if this changed how you think about what is sitting on that auto parts shelf, hit subscribe, because the same consolidation story is playing out in tires, brake pads, and motor oil. In almost every aisle of that store, you are navigating the same manufactured illusion. The battery is just where it is easiest to see. We are just getting started.